Greetings, family. Welcome to the Grand Rising Collective. My name is Kyle Dixon, co-host, educator, and entrepreneur for 20 years. Grand Rising Collective's here is to cultivate greatness in ourselves and our community.
And my name is Kayode Bentley, co-host, educator, and entrepreneur for over 20 plus years. My contribution to Grand Rising Collective is to help cultivate that greatness in ourselves and the community through impactful discussions, seminars, and webinars with my co-host, Kyle Gibson.
Greetings, family. Welcome to another edition, another episode of the Grand Rising Collective podcast. I am one half of your co-host, Kyle Dixon here. We have my other co-host, Kayode Bentley, in full effect, in effect mode in the city. Say what's up to the people, Kayode.
What's up, fam? What's up, everybody? We appreciate you. Glad we're here. We're going to dive right into it. Go. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for the intro, man.
Indeed, family. So we got a special guest, as we always do here on the platform. Again, this is Black History Month. Of course, Black History is every day, every month, but it's specialized for the month of February. So I have a colleague of mine that we're definitely going to hop into a really intense and really cool talk about history and how that affects our communities, how it affects the politics, etc. But I got my brother here, William Gibbons, famed librarian in the Harlem area, originally from Detroit. What's going on, my brother?
Everything is everything.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be with you guys this afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Indeed, brother. We appreciate having you on our platform. So let's hop right into it. Let the people know, who you are. You grew up in Detroit. How'd you get here to Harlem? And just what was that like? That whole process of being from one Black community into another Black community.
Yeah. So I'm a librarian and I'm an archivist. I'm a professor at the City College of New York. I've been doing that for 30 years. And I stumbled right into the profession of librarianship and archives. I like to write, I like to research, and a librarian at the library on 124th Street in Harlem, where James Baldwin would go there, sit there and read. This guy was the head of the library there. And I went in there one day and I was just telling him I want to write and research and I'm not happy at my job. And the man said, well, why don't you become a librarian? And that just said, because, like actors and actresses, while they're trying to make it and go on auditions, they work in restaurants. They do jobs where that'll allow them to go on an audition at any moment, right? So I figured if I want to write and edit and research and teach, being in an environment where there's books and I have the time to do that, it just seemed natural. And so, I've worked at the New York Public Library, I worked at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And I was the educational coordinator, director. And, it was during their 75th anniversary. So they were celebrating as a center 75 years. And they had an exhibit called Lest We Forget, the triumph over slavery. And my job was to connect schools and families and organizations from all over the world and welcome them into the center and expose them to the richness of the exhibit and to the materials at the Schomburg. And so I did that for about 5 or 6 years. Did a total of 9 years at the New York Public Library. And then, got a little taste for academia life and, did another 21 years at the City College of New York. But my journey begins in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm from Detroit and I'm of New York. And in 1991, I moved to New York. But Detroit, you mentioned, Kyle, going from one Black community to another Black community.
Yes.
Growing up in Detroit in the 70s and the 80s was a beautiful thing. It was beautiful because, Detroit is is a metro area. In the 70s and 80s, it was the fifth, sixth largest city in America. But here's what's cool. 99% of the city of Detroit, the fifth largest city in the 80s and 90s, was all Black. The politicians were Black. The police chief was Black. The superintendents of schools were Black. The businessmen were Black. And so, oh yeah, man. I mean, if you look at Detroit today, it's 80%, Black. So yes, if you take all the Black folks in New York, right, they would be the third, fourth largest city amongst themselves in America, right? If you just took all the Black folks in New York, right?
Yeah.
So clearly there's more Black folks in New York than there are in Detroit. But Detroit,
Gibbons, real quick.
Yeah.
Can I interject real quick? I don't mean to stop your flow, brother, and your knowledge. I just wanted to ask a quick question. Where does Atlanta fall into that? Because all the time growing up in the 80s and 90s, even into the 2000s, I thought Atlanta was the only city that had the most Black people in it. Detroit didn't even come up for the most part in the conversation. It was Atlanta, which was the mega city for Black people. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to throw that in there to give me some.
Oh no, not at all, man, not at all. In the maybe late 70s and in the 80s, you had two Black mayors, Maynard Jackson, and I think Andy Young was right.
So yes,
and so what happened? Well, in Atlanta, you didn't have white flight. You see, Detroit had white flight. So there was no race, there was no riots in Atlanta that pushed the white folks out of Atlanta, you see. So, while Atlanta, I mean, we automatically think of Atlanta as a Black capital, particularly of the South, because of Dr. King, and Black mayor.
Right.
But there was a ratio of maybe a percentage of maybe, 50-50, or it might have been 40% Black, 60%, white folks, people of European descent. Whereas in Detroit in 1967, because I mean, look, Harlem was not, Black folks didn't live in Harlem initially. Harlem was designed and built and attracted white folks, Germans, Jews, second and third generation, Knickerbockers and Brits and all that, right? And then, one or two Blacks started moving in at the turn of the 20th century, and you slowly had white folks moving out, right? Atlanta is so spread out, right? Like Detroit, for New Yorkers, right? Detroit and Atlanta, you could mirror to be like Queens, houses and everything spread out. So, when you talk about, there's deep pockets of white folks still in Atlanta. And then at that time in Detroit in 1967, there was a riot. And after that riot, they left. So by the mid 70s, you're looking at a metro area. Now, so to give you some context and some geography, we know the movie 8 Mile by Eminem, right?
Right, yeah, classic.
Right? So 8 Mile is a dividing line between the suburbs of Detroit and the city of Detroit.
Okay.
So I mean, that's why my man called it 8 Mile.
8 Mile, okay.
Right? Because what he did, he came across 8 Mile and was battling and rapping in Detroit. So what happened was The white folks in the 70s, after the riots in 67, just went across the street and went to the suburbs. And as a result, left the city of Detroit, just like the Jews and the Germans and the native New Yorkers left Harlem for Black folks. So Harlem is like a microcosm of Detroit, if that makes sense.
Got you. Thank you. Hey, the historian right here. You're right, Cal. Okay.
So to conclude, I grew up with a high self-esteem because everybody around me was Black, businessmen, politicians, and so I didn't know
you know anything else.
Black folks. I'm 10 and 12 years old. I thought Black folks ruled the world. I didn't even know that there was racism and discrimination because I didn't come in contact with them, right? And so I'm you're talking about doctors and lawyers, and so everybody's parents that I was growing up with was running schools or were professionals or businessmen. And here's the beauty, baby. This is the beauty. If you wanted any kind of Cadillac you wanted, you got it. Thunderbird, Camaro, you wanted it because everybody worked. That's where the cars come from. Yeah. So you could change cars. And then that was the Superfly era. So my old dude would have Cadillacs and Thunderbirds every 2 years. So that's what I see. And we all lived in houses, you see. There was no apartments, we lived in houses. And we went on vacations, and we didn't get on airplanes, but we drove down south. My family came from Kentucky and Georgia. So my family left after World War II. They left and came from Georgia. My father's family's from Georgia. My mother's family's from Kentucky. My mother's family were coal miners. And they moved to Detroit to work in the auto plants. And so there was a strong Black middle class in the city of Detroit. And so, Detroit defines who I am and gives me my sense of consciousness, and it gives me my my abilities to relate and intermingle. So you'll always meet a brother from Detroit. Yeah. Someone.
Right. I concur.
So I'm already ready with the questions, Cal.
Go ahead.
So I grew up in the city, right here, Harlem, Bronx, and in the cities you're surrounded by your own culture, and that's fine. And the media played a part in my indoctrination. I'm grateful to my dad with regards to exposing me to Black culture, stolen legacy, things of that nature. My question is this, Mr. Gibbons. Is it Mr. Gibbons, Cal, or Dr. Gibbons?
Mr. Gibbons.
All right.
Hey, William. How about William?
Yeah, William.
All right, William, got you. All right, got you, William. All right, so my question, William, is I always, when I got to the 80s, my teens, and in my early 20s, the indoctrination from the media was so pervasive that it had me believing, or maybe it changed since the 60s and 70s, which most likely did, that Detroit was always poor. And Detroit was, I really didn't equate Detroit with Black people. I equated Detroit with a poverty, poverty location, poverty state. So to hear you say that you grew up with surrounded by Black people, doctors, lawyers, things I didn't think that existed anymore, because I thought that all died with Black Wall Street. You know what I mean? Well, I didn't think that kind of populace existed in Detroit.
Yeah. We're here. I'll drop something else on you. So in the 80s, Detroit and Washington, D.C., every year battled for the murder capital of America.
Mm.
So, hey, we got this technology. You guys can Google murder capital of America. And in the 80s, it was Detroit, right?
Wow.
And,
Okay.
and I still haven't figured out. So, I mean, the answer is if we're the murder capital, there's a lot of murders happen, right? And so, but the poverty aspect, this makes no sense, right? Check this out, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody got cars, and this is where the plant started. This is where the cars was invented in Detroit.
Right. Yep.
You got Ford, Chrysler, and GM, right? And that's really all we had in the 70s, 60s and 70s, 50s, early 80s. That's all we had, Ford, Chrysler, and GM. And all of a sudden, here comes the foreign competitors, right? Now, mind you, everybody in Detroit, if you're sweeping the floors of an auto plant, you're making $10, $15, $20 an hour in the 80s and the 80s. That's good money.
Yeah.
Sweeping the floor. Okay. You're not even on the assembly line, right? And so my grandfather didn't work in the auto plant. He worked at Uniroyal making tires. So there was everybody, there were jobs connected to different. My uncle was a small business supplier for the auto industry, right? So you think about putting a car together, right?
Mm-hmm.
The companies don't make the screws or the parts for the windshield or the dial for the radio. They contract that. They get that, and then you send it to them, and then assemble it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my uncle had a metal stamping supply company that made parts for the auto industry, right?
Okay.
So everybody's eating. We're all making good wages, right? Without a college degree.
Got you.
All of a sudden, here comes the foreign auto market into America. Or it's the labor, the UAW, which is the most powerful union in America. The union workers, the United Auto Workers of America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're negotiating good wages for white folks, but the black folks are getting those good wages too. Okay. So you've got this strong economy in the 60s and early 70s.
Okay.
By the 80s, here's my theory, right? Is the automakers, Chrysler, Ford, and GM, allowed the auto industry, the American auto industry, to diversify, poor economy city. And so I think that what was happening was all these black folks were doing well, had good union wages, good benefits, good jobs. And the auto industry, began to close plants and use the foreign auto market coming into America as a way of then sending out those jobs to non-union states, the Sun Belt. So Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, where there are no unions. So, for example, the Honda plants are all down in the Sun Belt. So at that point, where the jobs were initially, because black folks and West Indians moved to New York and to the North for jobs. Everybody's part of that great migration.
Yes.
So the jobs was all the meat packing in Chicago. So they were always up north. That's where the jobs were. So now the jobs are going back down south where there's no unions. So what happened in Detroit is that by the 90s, there's few auto plants. The automakers are losing money, their profit share, their margins, because of the Hondas and the Toyotas. And so wages went down. And then, just like they did in New York, they dropped that crack in the city. Right? And so all of those social and economic things derailed the strong economy that Detroit once had. Because, you know, if we become a self-contained city with jobs, right? We're good. We don't, you know, we don't need, you know, anything on the outside. And I think by design, you know, because think about this, fellas. Here's a trivia question. What's the only city in America to go bankrupt? So in Detroit, 75, New York almost went bankrupt. So
I was about to say, I was about to say New York. Yeah. New
York in 75 almost went bankrupt. Right? And that's when Ford told New York to drop dead. I'm not bailing you out.
Right.
So they didn't bail out Detroit. So Detroit is the only city in America to go bankrupt. Now that is a huge city.
Wow.
And so what they were able to do was to grab, so for $500,000, you can get a downtown office building once the city went bankrupt. So dudes was going to, you could go to Detroit now and get you know, 6-7 houses for like 50,000.
But that's after the economic collapse in 2008, right?
Yes, but it's been a slow decline. So Detroit went bankrupt in I think in the early 2000s, but it's been a slow decline. So what you have in other cities too after the civil rights movement, you know, so we think we living good in Detroit because we all black. But you're right. You got crack, you got murder capital. You know, it's rough. Detroit is a rough city, man. It's a really rough city. And so black folks left, just like black folks left Harlem, right? So you look at all the rappers from New York, they grandparents in like LL, they moved to Hollis, they moved to St. Albans, right? Louis Armstrong, all them, they left Harlem and went to Queens, right? Same thing was happening in Detroit. So full disclosure, you know, my old man left Detroit. He left Detroit in 1983, 84. And ever since then, he's been living in the suburbs, Bloomfield Hills, out there in Detroit. So, you know, people who wanted, you know, to live in the suburbs, you know, go on the other side of 8 Mile. Now, by the way, Eminem, he lived, you know, in trailer parks. So he didn't live in the suburbs of high, he lived with poor working class folks, white folks, working class white folks. That's where he lived. He didn't live in 5-6 bedroom houses. So, you know, my old man went out to the suburbs and got him a 6-bedroom house in the 80s and left Detroit. Now his business was in Detroit, but he left.
I'm sorry. So Eminem. So okay, because I'm confused by the movie. So in real life, Eminem did not live in a trailer park. That was just in the movies.
No, that's real life.
In real life. I would assume. I mean,
as far as I know, he lived in a trailer park where he lived in low income for sure.
Right. If he said he lived in the movie in a trailer park, there are trailer parks on the other side of 8 Mile in a certain part of town, and on across 8 Mile, and he could have lived there. But his home life probably wasn't, you know, because there are working class white folks who are struggling.
Yes.
Detroit, just as there are struggling working class white folks everywhere. So, you know, there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those in Detroit because
Okay.
because those people were also dependent upon the auto industry. Everybody was eating off the auto industry.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so when the auto industry is leaving Detroit and the jobs are leaving, Detroit ain't got no money. They got no tax base. So that's why the town, you know, went bankrupt because we put all our eggs in one basket, and that was the auto industry.
And then the foreign autos came in and disrupted the. Got you.
Right.
Okay.
Or the auto industry says, you know, we can reduce our labor costs
and a profit. Yeah.
and increase our profit by going to non-union states. Because I'm gonna tell you, the United Auto Workers, you know, back in the 70s and the 60s, and I mean, you know, Jimmy Hoffa, right? We don't even know where Jimmy Hoffa is. The Teamsters, right? So
right.
That was a powerful union and got wages because, you know, when my grandfather and them came up and was working in the auto industry in Detroit, they were 20%, maybe 10%. So what's beautiful about Detroit, which is beautiful about Harlem, is when you look at the houses in Harlem, that was built for upper middle class families. When you go to Detroit, a lot of those houses and homes and neighborhoods is where executives live. And middle class white folks who worked in the auto industry, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, they got out, you know, everything is timing. So they got out.
Yeah.
And Detroit sold that house and bought in the suburbs of Detroit. Just like, you know, we couldn't go to Long Island, right? So these white folks in New York, they leave Brooklyn, Queens, you know, Manhattan, and go buy that house in Long Island. They grandparents, they sell it a couple times. They got generational wealth. They pass it on 50, 60, 70, 100,000. You know, I mean, you know, when you buy that first suburban home in the 50s, when they built these highways and created pathways out there, they paid $30,000 for the house.
Right.
They're selling it for 200,000.
Right.
So now, you know, middle class average white folks now sitting on 150,000 cash. So then they take 50,000 and go buy another house. So now, so that was the grandparents that bought the house for 30. So now, the parents. So I'm talking about our parents now. Our parents now.
Here we go, y'all. Generational wealth. Here it is.
Buy a house, and they drop, you know, $20,000, $30,000 on a house, and now our parents, right, are 70, 80. They sell their house that they bought for, you know, 80,000. And then sell it for $500,000 or or 700,000. So, you know, once they clear capital gains, they got $500,000 liquid cash, and they're 80 years old. And so that's how these folks now, you know, just sitting on, you know, average dude working, sitting on 50,000 in his bank, 100,000 in his bank, because that was inheritance through home ownership.
And let me interject on this, Brother William, because you dropping gems right now. You dropping gems for the family, making the connection, because family, we want you to understand, like, this is a historian brother right here. So he's making the connection for us because we need to be able to do that. Yeah, we're in New York. Yeah, you may not be, you know, in the Midwest. Maybe you may be down south or out west or whatever the case may be. But we're trying to make the connection for you to see how things are. Our history is very broad, but it's very linear and it's very connected. So, Brother William, I want to go into, because you're going into generational wealth, you dropping gems, but I want to go into, like, you being a librarian and historian and research, like, you knowing all these things, like, how important is it for you to be a Black man in the library system and also knowing how to do proper research? Because there's a lot of information going on around on the internet, and a lot of it is just fugazi. It's just false. It's just half truths. So how important it is for you to be a Black librarian, a brother in that position, but also knowing how to research things properly and give facts, data, and statistics?
So what I do is I try to create knowledgeable library users
Mm-hmm.
who can use libraries and archives to their fullest potential. So I try to teach people, students, staff, faculty, the community, how to fish. Because if you can fish, you're going to eat, right?
Right.
I'm teaching people how to do archival academic research. So they can get access to reliable, credible information efficiently and quickly, right? In everyday life and around work and around school. So I'm helping everybody, the whole entire family, whole entire community. And so, yeah, it's important, me as a person of African descent to be in this position, because, we have to care. We have to, go that extra mile to give people the resources and the information that they need. You ever go into a store and somebody say, "Can I help you?" And you say, "I need this," and be like, "Well, go over there." So, I try to give people all that I have and all the insight that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came up, in libraries, it was the card catalog. It was you flip through a card,
Yes.
right? So then
man.
it went from being on a card to being in a book catalog. And then they took all the records in a library and then they put it in a database. See, I remember when there was no computer on your desk. Can you guys remember when you went to work and there was no computer on your desk? Because there was a time
I remember that.
when we didn't have so you go to work, you get a phone, that's it.
Yeah.
Now you gotta have a computer.
Yes.
So just the records, just the books were on cards to books and now in a computer, right?
Right.
Right.
So
right.
So now you can go into a library. So these libraries today got over 1 million books, right? So I'm not talking about the internet yet. We can get to the internet. I'm just talking about when you walk into a library, there's a whole bunch of books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So here's the most powerful thing, and this is what you should challenge and ask your viewers to do, is to go into a library, regardless of, I don't want to see no print book. The print books exist. No, they exist. Go into a library and look up a book and try to find it on the shelf among millions of books. Mm. So you think about every academic institution that has a library.
Mm-hmm.
They got over 2 million books in their libraries.
Yeah.
Right? Even Fisk, right? You go to the library in Fisk, they got over 1 million books, right?
Yes, that is definitely a Fisk. For sure.
Then
holla.
Right. Holla.
So then they have a book on the shelf, The Souls of Black Folk. They got that book.
Oh, yes.
Now you got to go find that book on the shelf. So that's what I do. I teach people how to find that book on the shelf. Now, people might say that's antiquated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that's the first step in being a lifelong learner, right? Because we're all learning. And if we're not going to be lifelong learners, we done. Because we don't know everything, right?
Right.
So how do we keep learning and is being lifelong learners? But then how do you get access to the information, right? So, if you trust everything that's on the net and not in the books, then you limit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the printed word is still valuable, right? And so what I'm doing right now, fellas, is I'm trying to collect all the essential books around African and African American history.
Mm.
As far back as George Washington Williams, who was one of our first Black historians, was writing history books in the late 1800s. George Washington Williams.
George Washington Williams. Okay.
And so, because I mean, if you think about this, right? Because we're not reading, we're not reading. If you hold up a book, right? So look at this, right? Here's a book. Do you see all that white stuff in there? It's about 300 pages of information. Hey, cats ain't got time to read that. I ain't got time to read this, right? So, you know the saying, right? If you want to hide something from somebody,
put it in a book.
Put it in a book. Put it in a book.
That's not even funny, bro. That's not even funny. That's sad.
Yes.
So I just want to go back to the point that I was making about going into a library and challenging yourself and finding a book on the shelf. So that's to speak to your point about, educating people. I help them get the access to the information that they want and that they need. And one of the first things is, how do you use a library, right? But some people say, I don't need to go to the library because I get everything I want on the internet.
Okay? Right. They'll say that, definitely.
So what I do is I help people be an efficient researcher and a smarter researcher, to cut down all that research time. Because what you really want to do, if you need information, you need to analyze it, synthesize it.
Yes.
You don't need to spend a lot of time looking for it. And you want good quality information.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're searching the net, trying to find it, is it quality? How long is it going to take you to find it? Now, I'll help you. I can help you find the information that you want by being able to focus your vocabulary and your terminology. Because Google, what are you doing when you use Google? You're putting in words and phrases. So I tell people all the time, you're going to search on Google, do not put in sentences, if you're looking for real information, right?
Okay.
So you break down your subject. So, okay, so you're looking for, you're doing some research on slavery. Well, what about slavery, right? I want to research slave breeding. So now we've gone from this broad topic of searching on the net, because if you put it on the internet, you put on Google slavery, you're gonna get a whole bunch of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But now I'm telling you, okay, what about slavery interests you, right? Slave breeding. So now you could put in the phrase or the word slave breeding. 2 words, it's a phrase, right? And then here's something else that I share with people. If you do have a phrase, which is more than 2 words, put it in quotation marks. Because if I put in Google slave and breeding, I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff, because everything on the internet is keyword driven, right?
Right.
So if I put in slave and breeding, I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff on slavery, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff on breeding. That's horses.
Right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if I put in the search box, in quotation marks, slave breeding, every result that comes up is going to be related to that topic. So it is elementary as that, right?
Right.
And so that is what I'm teaching. Right? Is how to focus your searches, how to actually think through what you want, right? What you need, what's your assignment, what's your objective, right? And so you know, I take what I do very seriously as I'm working with young people or adults. And so what I just shared with you guys, you know, was simple. Search it in Google and you got a phrase, put it in quotation marks, and you try it, right? So that's the second challenge that I'll ask your viewers to do is, you know, use slave breeding as an example, right? Okay. And don't put it in quotation marks. See how many results you get. Then put it in quotation marks and see how it focuses. So when you're doing research, you want to focus. You don't want 100,000 hits.
Right.
You want like 30, 40 hits, and you want the best of the best.
Yes.
Right?
Very good.
I encourage everybody to get a New York Public Library card. It's free.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of magazines that you can read digitally that, you know, that you get free subscription to. Right.
Right.
You know, you know, I can, you know, that could be for another show. You know, I could do some demonstrations and show, you know, how you could read and see the very first New York Times when it was the New York Daily in 1857.
Wow.
I can find articles in the 1880s on the day you were born in the New York Times within 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's about knowing where to look, what tools to use, how to manipulate those tools and resources to get the results that you want efficiently and quickly, so that now that you got the information, you analyze it and synthesize it and interpret it. Because that's the goal.
Yes.
The goal is to get the information. The goal is to analyze it, synthesize it, and interpret it. So if you're spending hours and hours and hours trying to find it, you're exhausted when it's time to analyze it. So I try to create. So I try to create knowledgeable library users to use libraries to their fullest potential, so that they can be efficient researchers and smarter researchers. And I'm gonna tell you guys, this AI stuff, we got to embrace it.
That's why I was gonna go into that. I was gonna go into that, brother. Please speak on that, because everything you're saying, I'm loving it. But I know there's some people out there. What about the AI? Why can't I just have it do it for me? Or what part does that play in us giving voice to our stories and finding our history and being able to use tech to help us?
So I'm a professor at City College, and I teach a course on Harlem and gentrification. I teach students how to do archival research. And a lot of my colleagues are afraid of AI.
Yes, people are.
Because students can write the paper. Now they're not so smart yet that they edit it. They just have AI write it and hand it in, and then they get caught. But the students are gonna figure out that they can ask AI to write it. They read it at least, and then take out the mistakes and edit it a little bit and hand it in. And so in 30 minutes, less than an hour, they got their paper, they hand it in, they get the grade. Right. So here's where I'm at, right? So I'm with telling the students, all right, go ahead, use AI. I want you to use AI, right? Because for me, AI is a secretary on steroids.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm preparing a lecture on Dr. John Henry Clark's analysis that without African history, there is no history, right?
True.
So I can put in and ask AI to and those prompts are real important. And so that's a new job. They're called prompt engineers. Creating, because Yeah, there are
Yes, new
people
term.
that
Yeah, new term. Yeah,
it's called prompt engineers because
I've heard of it.
AI and computers are dumb. They only do what you ask them to
What we
do.
tell them.
Yep.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So if you don't have that foundation and knowledge, you're not going to maximize it. So what I'm trying to do with AI and students is so that they understand how to maximize it, learn more quickly and efficiently, get the information you want, and build the paper. So I will ask AI to interpret Dr. John Henry Clarke's analysis on There Is No World History Without African History. And I'll ask AI to do that. And AI will give me some stuff. And I might take a few things out of there and ask AI another question.
Right.
Dr. John Henry Clarke says, you know, Black people, the name Black people, every other group and ethnicity is attached to land. Dominicans, Dominican Republic, Italians, Brits.
France, yeah.
What is Black attached to? Nothing. So AI will spit something out and talk about, you know, how Black people, we should be African Americans. Okay. But here's what Dr. John Henry Clarke says. Dr. John Henry Clarke says that because we are political people and Black is a political term, we can call ourselves Black people even though we don't have a landmass attached to our ethnicity. So you can accept that, you can reject that, but you can have a conversation, AI. So if you do this, right, if you have this conversation with AI, now you're building this knowledge. And so you can begin to have all these ideas come very quickly, efficiently, and begin to put them all together. And then you walk away with being able to have that conversation, get access to that information, be well informed, and write a well thought out paper that you can present, that now you become someone who can continue to build on that knowledge. Versus you say, AI, write me a paper on who Dr. John Henry Clarke was, and so. Right? So, you know, I mean, you know, the internet has helped us move along to do our work. You know, we do all our banking electronically. You know, we can register our cars at DMV electronically. There's so many things that we can do electronically. So technology is helping us be more efficient. And so AI can do the same thing. It's in its infancy. And, you know, the tech people know the full capability of AI that we haven't learned yet. Because remember, the internet was around in the 40s and 50s during World War II.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time. They just let us have it. You know? So, because you know what I've been thinking? So just like the foreigners came in and took the profit margin of the American auto industry.
Yeah.
The man was Microsoft and Bill Gates for a long time. And then here come Apple, right?
Okay. Okay.
And not even just Microsoft was affected, but IBM. Remember IBM?
Definitely remember IBM.
Yeah.
So
IBM
was before all of them.
Yes.
You know, those mainframes were IBM, International Business, right?
Right.
And so IBM and Microsoft been laying low. And now they back. They back with AI. You know?
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I didn't know IBM. I didn't know about IBM being back when yeah. That I didn't know.
I mean, they was on 60 Minutes talking about, you can have conversations with historians and so forth that have passed through, and so what they did was they put the information in the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was the kind of the beginning of AI.
Mm-hmm.
They would install it, and then you could have that conversation with, right? So they would put in a president, put all of his thoughts and speeches and everything in, and then you could actually talk to him, and he could respond to you, right? That was on 60 Minutes a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, what Microsoft is doing and why Google is the king is because they've mastered and captured, collected all of that data. See, people don't remember when Google was going into the big boys' libraries and digitizing their entire library.
Yes.
And then,
I remember hearing.
yeah. So you could, so if you go to Google Books, and you put in a book, and they give you the whole full book, you'll see that on the bottom it might say Yale, University of Michigan, Princeton, right? They didn't go into small libraries. They went into the huge libraries. They got 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 volumes, and went in there and digitized their books. And so,
wow, okay, I didn't know IBM. I didn't know they were behind all that with the AI.
They're not behind all that, but they're figuring a way to come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're figuring out, like Microsoft, because Microsoft lost some of their, like if I'm buying Apple, I don't need
revenue. Yeah.
I don't need Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need
PC versus Mac. It's like
I don't need that. So I mean Apple's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
billions, trillions, I think.
So right. So Bill lost some of that profit because before all we had was, we still had Apple, but Apple wasn't Apple when I was in college in the 80s.
Right.
No.
So, and so, Gates been laying low, but now he's got Copilot because, they have Copilot is their AI. Yeah. Hey man, like I said,
I didn't even know that. I didn't even
know. Yeah. It's moving quick. No, it's moving quick. It's moving quick.
So if you Google Copilot, you can sit there and you can ask Copilot, Copilot, I need some information. And because Copilot is Bing, right? Copilot is Bing. Because Bing is the equivalent for Microsoft as it is for Google. Mm-hmm. So these two boys, Google and Microsoft, have, the data, the internet at their disposal. So that's where we have to get caught up on, and just kind of understanding where this is going and what it's moving and just how to use it. So, I'm trying to figure out how to, bring it into the classroom, because universities are really afraid of AI because of plagiarism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know when you and I talked about this, and okay, you got your question, because I know you and I talked about this as far as like plagiarism. It only goes so far because, like I said, you can have technology do your work, quote unquote, your paper for you. But if you're not learning anything, you're getting shammed. And that's what the students don't understand, is that, yeah, you can get the assignment done, but it's more about what you're getting from the assignment by doing it, in the intellectual and the knowledge resonating with you and being a part of you and your opinion on that, versus just completing the assignment. And like I said, we've gotten here in America where it's just like, I want to get an A. I want to get an A for the sake of getting an A, not for the sake of learning.
Right.
Not for the sake of learning. And that's what's being missed. So I, as a teacher, as an educator, because we all are educators in here and entrepreneurs, I'm not concerned with you plagiarizing, because here's what I tell my students, family. If you plagiarize, you playing yourself. If you plagiarize, you're playing yourself, because you think you're getting over, but you're actually getting taken advantage of, and you don't even know it.
What you put into it is what you get out.
Exactly.
And there you go.
And so I'm gonna tell you, universities and colleges is in trouble. because enrollments are down,
Mm-hmm.
cost is high,
Mm-hmm.
and learning about Shakespeare, even the Harlem Renaissance, how's that going to help me with a job?
Right. That's what I want to get into. Yes.
So when you have to take 120, 115 credits, and that might be 30, 40, 50 classes, and you're like, well, how is this going to help me in the workplace?
Right.
And it's going to put me in debt. And there's an opportunity cost involved. Why am I going to school? And so your big boys are surviving. They're getting every year the Ivy Leagues, the leaders in the Midwest, the Michigan, Illinois, the UC systems in California. They're getting 20, 30,000 applicants a year. So but the smaller universities and colleges are seeing a decline in enrollment. And
that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but to the point that the ones that are going, a majority of them, and well, I wouldn't say a majority, but I would say 30% of the kids going to college today are not ready for college. And the only reason why they in college is because their mamas and daddies told them you're going to college. Right? Imagine in the 60s, right? Imagine in the 60s, right? So you either go to war, now you can get out of the war, you go to college.
College, yeah.
Right? And in some cases, if you got married, they wouldn't take married men. So, you look at today, or even like in the 2000s when we was watching A Different World, we was like, hey, we're gonna go to college because we want to use education as a way to middle class, right? And so now I don't know where we are, in terms of what they're thinking. I know that learning about humanities is not going to help me in the workplace, and I'm getting debt. And maybe I can be an influencer. Maybe I can figure out another way to make money. But I'll tell you this, fellas, and then I won't keep you guys. The public school systems in America have failed our children and our families because these kids is not ready for college. They can't think critically, and they can't compose, and they don't have the social skills and the classroom etiquette. New York City is yeah. So do we know if it's by design or what? But New York City, it's too big. It's the largest school system in America, right? It's 8 million people living here. So, and so I think that, people don't like to hear this, and we're already losing teachers as we're losing nurses. But the teachers have to come and be creative and challenge the students because they've lost control of the classrooms. They're coming to work and it's just a job. And so I'm throwing it all on the teachers, right? Because, back in the day, we had a shack, and one room, and everybody was crowded in there and they was learning.
Yes.
So it's not the resources. And I know there's some things happen at home and the family, if the kids are not ready and prepared to come to school. Definitely. But, hey, look, man, we could use our culture to teach our kids math and science. We can definitely, hey, man, look. So, and this is, I'm going down in the rabbit hole in the weeds, but look, I mean, Nas dropped out of high school, and Nas is lyrical. So how about we're teaching history and getting kids to learn and then rhyme what they learn. Now you're connecting them to where they're at. But we doing the playbook, right? The standardized stuff. And so, listen, I don't know what the next question you're gonna ask. I'm gonna say this. And I'm gonna say this on tape. I'm gonna say this on tape.
Okay.
We were better off during the era of.
I knew he was gonna say. I knew it was coming.
We were better. Our biggest mistake.
Integration.
We had an economic boycott to integrate the bus system in Montgomery, Alabama. And for a whole year, we crippled the Montgomery bus company. When they caved in and let us sit in the front of the bus, we didn't realize the value in economic resistance, protest, and the value of self-reliance, because we carpooled and we found other ways to get to work in Alabama and Montgomery. So self-reliance, self-determination, and nationalism. And that's where we messed up once we started to do this integration. And so I'm saying it, people agree. Then people also say to me, well, you know, during that era, we didn't have nothing. We did. You know what we thought? The white man's ice was colder.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Welcome to the William Gibbons show, everybody. William Gibbons podcast.
Man. I'm just a humble dude, man. You know, I've been blessed to have the time as I began your program.
Yeah.
Being in an environment where I can soak up all of this information. So think about it, right? I'm helping the students, right, in the library, but I'm also reading, right? So I'm around all of this knowledge. So all I'm doing is I got time.
Right.
See, I have a question. So I sit there and I read about Montgomery and Dr. King's, you know, ascending to national platforms, you know, and I'm like, you know, just like Emmett Till's mother, sparked the movement by showing the body. So, you know, all we have to do is analyze, synthesize, but it takes time. And you have to, you know, when I tell people, when you're doing research and you're writing, you got to be relaxed.
Okay.
And you can't be in a hurry. You can't do it all in one day, but you know, you got to be relaxed. That's the first thing I tell students when they're doing research is relax. Take your time. I'm going to show you how to do it. You do your research, and then you get to the analyzing and synthesizing. So, you know, that's all. You know, I've just been in that environment.
You dropping some stuff. Man, I don't know where to go, Cal. See, I can't ask questions too long. So
one last question. One last question.
One last question. I'm gonna say one statement and then one last question. The statement is this: that's going to be the biggest challenge with our generation or in this society today, because we live in a microwave oven mentality. Young people today have access to information at their fingertips through the technology, and they're so quick of just taking a snippet of something or the title, and they form their opinion based on that instead of doing the research. So that's a big challenge that we have to deprogram ourselves as well as the generation from. So that's the statement that I want to make. There's more to it than that. We just don't have time. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up real quick is one of the questions that we had planned to ask you. I'm trying to get it right now. If I can get to it's the last question, Kyle, that you have there. I can't. This is that. Like how is it going to affect the black? Hold on. I think I got it. Hold on. The question for you, Will, is when do you think black folk will prosper while living in the USA in light of all, the technology, the microwave oven society, and the whole research and the AI and all that stuff? When do you think we're actually going to wake up and be able to utilize the technology that we have to embolden and empower ourselves and our community to start owning our land and to start having a seat at the table?
Mm-hmm. So here I've been thinking about this too. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna try to answer the question, and you guys, if I don't, then you'll help me answer the question.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So, you know how sometimes you just gotta cut a man loose? Gotta cut a man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's what I'm saying. To solve our problems and our issues in Black America, we're gonna have to go to we're gonna have to kind of hope the generation that's in middle school and a generation in high school, those that can kind of come up, we hope they can come up, we'll help them come up. But we got to go back to elementary school and deal with these kids when they're in the womb and start there.
Wow. Okay.
So we gotta sacrifice a generation or two. And that doesn't mean everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That means that, we're gonna pull up those who are in middle school and who are in not middle school, but who are in high school. We're gonna help pull you up. But
that's what I'm doing.
Right, but we have an opportunity to rescue those kids in middle school and elementary school, to set a foundation economically, socially, politically, culturally, and family-wise, mm-hmm. to then achieve everything that we need to achieve, right? And I'm gonna tell you something. I'll put this on tape too. Mm-hmm. Black folks, all Black folks, there's two things I want to say. One mm-hmm. is we need to start having a conversation about redemption and about healing.
Okay.
The Black male and the Black female needs to have a conversation, and Black men need to kind of apologize historically for the way in which, society has treated them. Mm-hmm. And I think how we begin that conversation, I've been thinking about this, and somebody dropped this on me, and I kind of, filled it out a little bit, is we need to read Alice Walker's Color Purple, the book, not the movie, the book. Because the book is about a conversation that Celia's having with God, you see, and about all her struggles. But we see what's happening in the movie, and we know what happened to Alice Walker when she wrote the book. She got all that flack for putting all our business in the street.
Right.
But I think that we need to atone, and we need to begin to dialogue and have because we got to come together. Because right now,
no doubt.
Right now, since George Floyd, we don't forgot about George Floyd. We forgot all about him. Mm. It's about other communities, other ethnicities, other orientations. White men and Black men that are heterosexual is catching hell. And so we can't say nothing. We can't make a mistake. So we need to begin to have conversation with our sisters about recognizing their pain, recognizing that, society hasn't done them well. They get the short end of the stick, right? They wanted to go to work. They wanted equal rights. But guess what? They go out in the workplace and work. Right. And then they got to come home and take care of the house. So now they got more on their plate. And then, the brothers, we got to make sure we do right by them, because we can destroy a family easily, with fidelity and abuse. Yeah, all of that, right? Yeah. So So we need to start having a national conversation about redemption, about just, you know, because that's about this self-reliance, self-determination. This is about that. So if the black man and the black woman on the same page, we good, you know, but we're not. They, you know, they on top right now. You know, I mean, they canceled my man Don Lemon, and they got women now, you know, and so the whole orientation is just, you know, I don't want to get into that because I'm gonna get in trouble. You
yeah, no.
But it's hey man, I tell you, it's hard out here for a heterosexual male, white or black. Now, some of it we might have inflicted on ourselves, but you know, all of us don't deserve what's going on today.
It's real.
See, Will, now you're talking about relationship topics. Cal bring Will in the relationship joint, because that's going to be a nice conversation. Yeah. It's too much. I don't have any more questions. I'm not going to ask it because, you know, we'll go 3-4 hours with this.
We can go.
Man, I got to get to my next interview, man.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on, man.
So
let's go.
As you see, right? So we want to thank Brother William to be on here. William, how can they contact you? How can the family contact you if they want to reach out for questions or anything?
Harlem Archives at gmail.com. Harlem Archives, one word. Harlem and then archives at gmail.com.
Okay, family. So look, family, we appreciate you. Thank you for watching us. Again, if we triggered anything, that wasn't our purpose. If we, you know, ill feelings behind things, just we talk about it. You know, these are opinions. So again, take it for what it is, but we're always willing to have the conversation. So again, in that note, before we sign out, this is Grand Rising Collective. Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. You know you subscribing. If you're not subscribing, you better start subscribing because we need that support to continue on, and we appreciate you. So before we sign out, Kayode, you know how we do. You know what goes on.
We forgot to tell Will what it was. I forgot to tell Will. So, Will, what we usually do is 3, 2, 1, peace. That's basically it. But we gotta have you back on, brother. We gotta have you back on. All right, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, peace. So the peace side.
Hey, 313. Hey, 313. Detroit know what that is, baby. 313. That's the area code for Detroit. 313, baby. Represent.